But why did Senior Yen and the Special Forces team disappear? What exactly there happened? I'm worried about their safety, especially for their daughter and Guy. But for now, it's best for us to rest so we can set out tomorrow. Just as I said that Duong Danhoa arranged a room for the master, but unexpectedly, the innkeeper stopped him, saying that the room was too small for 3 people, not to mention having a lady with them. It will be uncomfortable. So he designated a room for Van Q and Thien Pham. The deputy minister carefully about it and suggested thought instead of letting the master rest alone. It would be better to have someone by his side to attend to him. That would surely be better. Van Doan, why don't you stay with him? Van Q declined, but Duong Dan Ho led the senior away immediately. Before going to the room, he even winked, indicating that the chief disciple's arrangements were already made. Wishing you both a romantic spring night. Indeed, these two were as close as they could be. So reluctantly, the young couple went downstairs. While heading to their room, no one dared to say anything out of shyness. Although they had been together since the days of the cult, today was the first time Van Q would be alone with her man. She had to calm herself down with some verses from literature before standing at the door. Thien Pham reminded her to come in, and she shyly complied. As the door closed, she noticed with surprise that there was only one bed. Perhaps they would share it tonight, but she was still embarrassed. So she hurried downstairs to request another bed from the innkeeper. Thien Pham intended to object, but no words came out. In the hallway, the presence of a woman became indescribable. Her heart raced and she felt jittery about being with the man she liked in such a confined space. Nevertheless, it was thrilling. Unable to sleep in a room with only one bed, she guessed that the sect leader must have given her the room, not a shared one. So she went to Ho Baum's room, but despite knocking, no one answered. She could feel someone inside though. Out of options, she knocked harder, calling her cousin Thien Pham's name until he reluctantly opened the door. "What's the matter? Do we need to switch rooms?" he asked. "There's only one bed in that room too, so I don't know what to do." Thien Pham sobbed, his expression puzzled. Van Q revised at her teammates and sensed their doubts. How should they handle this situation? "This room also has only one bed. You'll have to sleep on the floor," Thien Pham said, taking the brunt of the situation and allowing Van Q to sleep on the bed. However, he seemed even more embarrassed than the women. Van Q could see that he was uncomfortable, perhaps more than any woman. Before her eyes, she could see the turmoil within him. Was it because he harbored feelings for her, just like she did for him? Unable to find the right words, she simply urged him to rest early. Van Q didn't object and gradually relaxed, undressing to rest. This made Thien Pham feel ashamed as he had never been in such close quarters with a woman before. He decided to take the initiative and spoke up. "It seems like you're still going to wear your mask to sleep," he said softly, making Van Q's heart race even more. She couldn't find any words to say in response. "Yes, I forgot. Let me help you with that," Van Q said, moving closer to assist in removing the disguise. Without waiting for her consent, she removed it, saying that she had to put glue on it every day. Hearing her melodious voice close to his ears, Thien Pham remembered the first time he had met her, disguised as a man. Since then, he had only ever thought about her. These words were no different from what Van Q felt. Both hearts were now beating in unison. Finally, Thien Pham spoke up, gently calling her name. She didn't respond but let him take the lead. Nervousness filled the room, causing her heart rate to skyrocket. The Hawkmon readings were too high. After so many years, the two finally expressed the feelings they had buried for so long. Just as the scene was getting interesting, let's switch over to what Ho Baum has been up to. He had managed to get a few hours of sleep and crowed loudly, but the deputy minister still hadn't slept. Now it seems like the time for him to start moving. He carefully stepped outside to assess the situation. It was late at night, so most likely everyone in the inn was fast asleep. Alone Duong Dan Ho stepped outside to inspect. Earlier, he had entered the owner's room, but the old man was nowhere to be found inside. The messy bed and curtains indicate that someone had definitely been there before. Where could he have gone? The rain hindered his senses, forcing him to open up new sensory channels. The mystical energy of the old minister permeated everywhere. After a while, he discovered the silence outside was enhanced, as if someone was lurking near the horse stable. Immediately, he rushed there to eavesdrop. Indeed, the secretive owner was conversing with a stranger, quickly pulling out the jade card. Duong Dan Ho recognized it as the only object that can summon the divine healer. He decided to let them finish their conversation before acting. Suddenly, with a swift move, he pressed towards the guest, causing him to panic. The action surprised him as he fell to the ground, revealing his martial arts skills. Despite his high proficiency, Duong Dan Ho couldn't sense the energy within him. The old man's voice resonated as he searched for the jade card, indicating the effort it took to find it. It seems we should hunt down Shu Jilan, right? Realizing that the owner had noticed him long ago, Duong Dan Ho planned to leave immediately. However, being cornered, he drew his sword to retaliate. It seems you're quite agile. During this time, I had to constantly crouch, causing body aches. Thank you for helping me stretch, he said. Who are you, after all? Do you know that I am the owner? Duong Dan Ho noticed that this person had disguised himself, but the rain had smudged his skin, revealing his true identity. Thinking so, he was about to strike, but before he could, a powerful force attacked, deflecting his blow. The room was suddenly filled with images, half real and half illustration, as the owner lunged forward to attack. Duong Dan Ho struggled to distinguish between reality and illusion. Eventually, he mistakenly struck the shadow, while the owner, with a sinister smile, launched a counterattack. Duong Dan Ho dodged and retaliated, but his petite figure couldn't match the owner's strength. Another attack came, but the old man's swift movements easily evaded it. You also know how to use your brain, don't you? Useless ones like you will soon become my lifesavers. As he spoke, the owner displays internal power, creating numerous miraculous images. The two shadows, half true and half false, advanced to kill. The old minister, avoiding confrontation, tried to evade both. However, they encircled him relentlessly, making it difficult to discern between them. Finally, his subordinate had to stop to face an incoming sword, but perhaps he couldn't match the opponent's speed. He narrowly dodged a blow, then aimed to destroy him. Duong Dan Ho leaped up and struck downward, but with his small stature, he couldn't harm the old man. Another attack followed, but the agile figure quickly evaded. You're quite clever. The useless ones are coming to your rescue. He paused, then unleashed another powerful blow. But this time, Duong Dan Ho realized the danger and withdrew. Pham, who was busy with his own matters, had to rush out to assist, barely having time to put on his mask. It turns out you're not just the owner. The old man's thoughts raced, realizing that the items thrown were a signal for this person. I thought it was just a clueless fool, but turns out you're a skilled martial artist. He spoke loudly, asking for the true identity, as there were many unusual noises. Everyone was waking up gradually. You're lucky to be alive today. With that, he turned and left without saying goodbye. Nam Chin didn't chase after him. Instead, he hurled his sword, but the old man's speed was so fast that it almost touched his body. Once again, the man seemed to have eyes at the back of his head, evading immediately. As he was about to pursue, the old minister stopped, seeing the injuries of his subordinate. Unable to confirm the true identity of the owner, he couldn't guess his martial arts level. He must be at least of equal rank or even superior to me. Then he applied pressure points near the wound for Duong Dan Ho. Hastening inside for treatment, both of them were supporting each other when disciples from the Vodang sect appeared. They inquired about the situation, and the old minister explained that they were ambushed while inspecting the stables. Upon investigation, they found the innkeeper had killed a man. Upon hearing this, others rushed to the stable. The two stable hands were in a state of panic due to the death of their master. He said he went out to get information from the innkeeper. But why did it turn out like this? It seems like something important happened, so he had to rush out to inquire from the actual innkeeper again, as if the real host had been murdered by the guest. So why did he witness it with his own eyes? He was afraid someone might come after him, so he ran back towards Thonglong. Someone listened and told others that something was missing, and quickly chased after him. Then they galloped away into the night. These disciples of Vodang, who had known each other for many years, only now realized that the old host was actually a master guest of the Teen Fam, nothing, and the subordinates saw left, so they asked for permission to retire to their rooms. Then they scrutinized carefully, and both of them discovered the secret of the main character. It must have been a mask due to the heavy rain, causing it to blur, But were they the ones who harmed the old guest and that man? Probably not, because the person who died was stabbed in the head, but both of their weapons were swords. Here he sobbed deeply. Another storm is brewing. The next morning, as the old host said, the mist covered everything, and the Vodang disciples had already left at dawn since last night. Thien Pham and the other guests investigated, but he knew nothing and only found out that the host had been having mysteriously for the past month. Nevertheless, due to its sinister nature, no one cares anymore. However, he understood that by that time, the mask layer must have been damaged and needed replacement. He also heard about Vodang's senior brother's situation, and the time we lost contact with him. What was he in such a hurry for? It must be related to that person mentioned. Anyway, since they all came to Phet Kiem Kok, they must know something. They had already taken the initiative to take the horses and continue the journey. But he had to pay attention to the old master and Van Q, who were now no longer hiding anything. Indeed, after a night like that, the rice had already turned into the biggest benefit. It must have been because of the tiger, so everyone was on edge. The group started their journey in difficult weather conditions, and the direction was lost because the grass was too thick for the horses to walk. Thien Pham also felt that way, so he asked Nano to analyze, but the system was very slow and could only draw a map without completing the process. However, at least it finds a trail due to many footprints left by the tiger leading the way, always following the direction of the Lord. The old minister on this side also found traces, footprints of two people in the rainwater not yet dry, very clear, and it had a clear direction. All footprints point to the place where the resonance sound came from. Clear enough, but Thien Pham still ordered to follow and see. An hour later, he arrived there, but was lost because the ground had turned into hard rock. Following Van Q's gaze up ahead, what everyone saw was a high mountain, winds howling, and the mist creating a gloomy scene. It seemed that this was the place where the resonance sound was emitted louder and seemed to reveal something. Only the main character and the old minister could see it clearly. Certainly, someone had used power to create this because it was the first time in Trung Gyan, so everyone was surprised. The tiger also noticed something and shouted to the Lord that there was a cliff ahead, so we shouldn't get too close. As the mist cleared, a deep, eerie abyss appeared. Then these two also noticed the marks engraved on the mountain wall, a unique sword character on the rock, probably to let people know that the sword was the first in the world. But this character seemed familiar. Van Q pointed for Thien Pham to pay more attention, and when everyone turned, something was stuck there. Upon closer inspection, there were hundreds of swords in front of them. Now the main character began to understand why there was a resonant sound emanating from the characters written on the rock wall, affecting those swords and making them vibrate. Even a cursory glance indicates that this character has been engraved for a very long time. This was a scene that even the transformation realm couldn't reach. The old minister transmitted his voice again to remind the Lord that he was feeling the presence of someone nearby. Immediately, he used his internal force to see more clearly, and the energy stream was found at the top of the mountain cliff. Ho Bong complimented it as beautiful, but was reminded to be quiet. "Quickly gather your spirits and follow me silently," he said. Afterwards, the whole group found many small caves on the fairy rock wall. Pham was thinking, could that be the residence of the probability doctor? Most of the caves here seemed artificial, as if they had been expanded, so he pointed straight to the largest cave. Our intuition also feels that way, but there must be a problem there, my lord. If we want to move forward, we only need to jump once, but the distance from here to there is about 100 meters, easy for Pham and Dan Ho, but difficult for Van Q and the tiger. Dan Ho will take responsibility for carrying my younger brother across to Van Q. Can she jump over there? Maybe this lady can do it because she's confident in her love. But Pham is worried again. If it's difficult, I'll carry her over. But Van Q stubbornly refused for some reasons, and in the end, she had to obey her man's words. I'm going to jump, so hold on tight. Pham took a long leap and reached the edge of the cliff with full speed. He jumped vigorously, and both of them floated in the air, looking dangerously above. Van Q's heart beat wildly, not afraid, but only admiring the handsome face of her master. They safely reached the other side. Dan Ho scratched his head and ears, relying on the old man and with each other. Quickly climb onto my back. If so, then I apologize. Before he could finish his sentence, the speed was too fast to see. This old leader's internal skills were not inferior to the two masters. They easily entered the cave. My younger brother was afraid of losing face, so he almost leaped out. Throw away the sacred body and throw it down. The old leader felt something and recognized the smell of sulfur, like a burning smell. Pham went deeper to check things out. Some scattered rocks under the ground. He immediately requested Nano to analyze the system components. It was composed of 75 limestone, 10 sulfur, and 15 charcoal powder. How could there be fire medicine in this cave? It seems that there is something wrong. I feel the anger of the people inside very clearly. Although blurry, they are not affected. Pham bound his subordinates outside to check inside alone. To avoid danger, he activated the enhanced vision mode and saw someone far away. Enlarge it for me. Sure enough, this was the person who was with the group killed in the valley, and he was holding a torch in his mouth. The main character now sweated with fear, understanding the intention and related things about the fire medicine. Then he shouted loudly, warning everyone to run outside. But everyone was careless and did not understand what the leader said. There was a loud explosion, creating terrible pressure. The three subordinates were pushed back to the mountain wall, and then a burst of light echoed, not seeing Pham anywhere. Van Q now realizes the danger. The dust and smoke, accompanied by falling rocks, were everywhere, and the main character's body fell freely and burned completely. It was too dangerous just now because that person was a bait, and Pham himself understood. If the fire spot fell, what would happen? He shouted and dropped the bait at the right time. As if predetermined, it fell straight onto the fire medicine pile. A loud sizzle sounded, and immediately it rushed towards the pile of explosives. The main character asserted something was not right, and then he shouted loudly to warn the subordinates. In that instant, his hands hurriedly pushed his internal skills, then shot directly behind, successfully pushed the three out of the cave. It was lucky to see it in time. Otherwise, all four would have died inside the explosion. This scene happened right in front of Van Q. Some pain struck her chest immediately. She is also balanced in time. Then she rushed to the edge of the cliff. Her eyes became blank and helpless, not knowing what to do. Seeing her man's body burning indefinitely, she screamed in pain. Pham remained motionless and instinctively rushed down below. The three of them had no way to go. At that moment, tears and mucus flowed on Van Q's face. She couldn't think of anything. She planned to jump down with Pham, but fortunately, the old leader noticed and stopped her in time. Let me go with my lord. Then he slapped her straight on the face. Dang angrily said to him, grabbing him by the neck, you must wake up now. If you jump from here, you'll only die, nothing else. Are you planning to sacrifice the Lord's life for you in vain? Van Q sobbed and collapsed, whimpering. Perhaps the most painful person right now is her, as she just realized her feelings, but now they're separated by life and death. Dan Hoa also felt sorrowful because his dear leader was no longer alive. Maybe he should have fled. It's a waste to waste the life of the master who saved him. It's so helpless. Then a voice came from inside the bushes, saying unexpectedly, caught you here, huh? You're the bait I used to lure other fools. Didn't expect to catch someone in the trap. If that guy is there, it'll be very uncomfortable. The tavern owner appeared. Luckily, he knew what to do and fell off the cliff. It's true that we were lucky. Van Q gritted her teeth when she recognized him as the offender. Maybe now she just wants to crush him with one hand and scatter him into pieces. A man cries like a woman, huh? So strong, he said. The old leader's internal skills emitted a terrifying aura. Perhaps this guy intends to settle the matter quickly. He immediately rushed to attack while everyone was still unprepared. Pham was unaffected below. His body was still falling fast. After a while, Nano's miraculous recovery abilities restore his consciousness. The system regenerated the burned skin. However, there was another problem, worrying him more. Why was this abyss so deep? It feels like being sucked into the depths of darkness. At this speed, no matter how much internal energy he used, his body would be crushed instantly. Pham felt helpless, thinking that this might be the end. He unconsciously looked down below, and many circumstances pushed his body to collide with the mountain's side. The main character couldn't do anything but go with the flow, following nature in this life and death moment. Time seemed to stop, and the image from last night suddenly appeared before his eyes. Van Q's beautiful face and radiant smile helped him regain consciousness. He couldn't die like this. From the beginning, he had given his heart to her. If her last expression was one of pain and sadness, how could he bear it? Thinking of this, he also noticed the objects on the mountainside below, deeply buried but still many swords stuck into the rock. Then his body fully recovered instantly. Pham turned from a passive to an active role. The white dragon blade behind him was promptly drawn out to slow down his fall by piercing into the hard rock layer. He exerted all his strength to slow down inside, secretly praying for it to stop. Then the miracle appeared, temporarily saving his life. Some parts of his body were broken, but he looked down below and the abyss wasn't far away. With this height, he can use King Gong. He thought about it and then took out his sword to jump down. Luckily, there were no problems. Indeed, martial arts are not perfect in all aspects. Depending on the situation, he could die at any time. But first, he had to find a way to climb back up the rock wall. The system activated enhanced vision to see clearly in the darkness. It turned out there were many swords stuck into the rock, but because it had been too long, most of them were rusty. Then he had a premonition. His eyes scanned around to observe. This place contains many skeletons, perhaps millions of martial artists who died here. At a distance of about 900 meters from the ruined sword cup, the cruel tavern owner was injured and staggering. He silently recalled the battle. If it hadn't used such a powerful aura to attack, he could have resolved everything. His hungry eyes couldn't forget, but it didn't matter. Anyway, we found the person who came out of that cave. Now we need to heal our internal injuries and then search for clues. While thinking about this, the subordinates appeared from somewhere and greeted. 2nd Division Leader Lai Chung Nat pays respects to Sword Sect Master Dao Kiem Mon. So these guys are all members of the Extreme Dao Sect, a mysterious martial arts sect that has been hiding for a long time down the abyss. Pham temporarily found a set of clothes from a dead person to wear. Since his own clothes were all torn, he had to borrow theirs for now. It seems that these are clothes of the deceased, so they're a bit old and worn out. He was wondering about the reason why they died down here. It seems like they didn't die at the same time because there are swords scattered everywhere. Without the whirlwind blowing from the middle of the abyss, it would be impossible to climb up from the bottom. I was thinking about walking around to observe, but after walking for a while, I had to stop. There are many sword marks and slashes down here. How could there be signs of people fighting in such a deep abyss? I was thrown down here by an explosion. Why would someone come down here to fight? But upon closer examination, the marks on the mountainside didn't seem to indicate that. These sword marks look very familiar. They are the techniques of the heavenly demon sword art. Except for a few differences, they are identical. Could it be that these marks were engraved here before those on the Tongok thatch? Wait a minute, I recognize the sword inscription up there. It looks familiar. It belongs to the founder of the heavenly demon sect. He had endured punishment and exile to the four corners of Hubei and Hainan. So he must have fought someone here. That unmistakable pain mark must belong to the extreme Tao god. He first appeared 500 years ago, which means he existed at the same time as our ancestors. This technique, I've never seen it before. Compared to the 6 sword techniques I've learned, it's incredibly powerful. Except for the final technique of the heavenly demon sword art, all others are on par with each other. It's fortunate that in this misfortune, I had a stroke of luck. I had Nano rescan everything. There are other sword marks that are different from the rest, repeated several times, similar to the traces left by the sword devil's art on the Thon Gok thatch. Why are there the words impossible here? Had you extracted all the sword marks here? Recreate that image for me immediately. A hologram appeared before Pham's eyes. The system had recreated the scanned sword marks into 3D images. First, categorize the sword marks and then recreate the animations. A few strokes amazed the protagonist. The sword techniques had been classified into martial arts, then recreated similar to the extreme sword techniques. They had added sword techniques transcending boundaries, allowing humans to move. It was unbelievable. The founder of the Heavenly Demon Sect had combined the Heavenly Demon sword art with the extreme Tao God sword techniques. What about when I encountered them in 20 years? A woman will appear who could match the second elder. Van Q now recounted the whole situation to Ho Shuang Ho and burst into tears. It turned out that the special team had disappeared and was now here. Cao Lo Tu had not yet met the master, but felt a great deal of gratitude because when he was injured, His subordinates were so sad. The senior elder did not express gratitude and wanted to get back to business. "I've already said it. Can you accept my request for treatment?" But she didn't say anything, just gestured towards the door with her two disciples who were always on guard. They must have discovered something. Anyway, the atmosphere here is strange. This wound needs regular treatment. Once it's healed, you'll be fine. After saying that, the physician left, but it seemed like there was something she wanted to say but couldn't. Yan Bokuo was also here and hadn't given any opinions. Now it's really hard to understand. Duong Danhoa understands that she's being closely monitored. How is this possible? The two communicated silently, realizing that they had overcome those people when they arrived here. When they enter the abyss, they immediately sense danger, so the Chief Yan drew her sword to confront them. She remembered the dark shadow sneaking past the special team deployed for reconnaissance. Both sides engaged in fierce combat. After a while, it became clear that the masked men we encountered were actually martial artists from this hidden sect. "Who are you and what brings you here?" One of them raised the jade token to state their purpose. It turned out they were guests of the healer, apologizing for their rudeness. Remembering the jade token makes it easier to convince them to let us go. However, suddenly the innkeeper and 3 other masters attacked us. Those old men were formidable, and the remaining 3 were also top-notch masters. In the blink of an eye, they had slain the soldiers of the Yin sect, and 2 martial artists from the trained manor also perished. The leader was so powerful that Elder Yan had to exert all his strength just to hold him off. At that moment, another figure appeared and interfered, helping us drive the old man away. It seems that the person who helped is also helping Duong Dan Ho. Both understand and recognize that his identity is one of the martial artists of the 9 schools and the head of the martial arts faction, none other than Vodang Ba Kim Huyen Van Tuyet. He is also one of the top martial artists in Central Nguyen and the rumored successor of the 9 schools. They are known as the 9 schools, and one of them is the legendary sword master, Huyen Van Tuyet, who has a high reputation in the martial arts world. He helped us drive away the old man so that we could enter here. But we still haven't convinced the Divine Doctor. Surely there is a reason for the Divine Doctor's attitude. Fortunately, Huyen Van Tuyet still doesn't know our identities, but they will soon find out because they have all reached a level of enlightenment, or perhaps they already know but are trying to take advantage of us. At this moment, the martial artists are still discussing in the middle of the night, and there is no other way. The old man disguised himself as a guest and then surrounded the useless sword cup with his disciples. One disciple suggested not staying here because the Divine Doctor has completed his divine medical skills, so there is no reason to stay. Even if it's for the sake of the celestial realm, there are still things that need protecting. However, they have found this place, so in no time, they will all find a way to overcome the Thon Gok Thach and the Kai Ma battle. Why did the person help them, Master? It seems like they resemble someone from the demonic faction or perhaps the devil's sect, as mentioned by the woodman. That's accurate, so the disciples speak up again. Now they no longer see that person, all of whom wore masks, so it's certain that something shady is happening, not just targeting the Divine Doctor, right? The Sword Master left because his intention was to lead Thien Pham's group and Kukdao Lup martial arts against each other. We will use them as a barrier to stop those people and return to the Wudang Mountain. Regarding the main character, it's unclear whether he has managed to reach the top. Below, Hung still continues to emit the sound of continuous training, the demonic energy emanating from the heavenly demon sword relentlessly. He continued to diligently practice according to the sword's engraved pattern on the stone platform, which indeed brought a lot of success. Along with that are things that no one knows. He tirelessly danced with the sword for 4 hours, so Thien Pham's body was exhausted. This is not an easy task. The heavenly demon patriarch is not like me. He not only mastered each martial art, but also tried to create something new by learning from the sword techniques of Chai Dao. Although it ultimately ends in failure, it is probably due to the limitations of the body. Kuk Dao Than's body has only developed the sword, not reaching the body's limit. Although the martial artist's body is fundamentally perfect, it still cannot resist limitations. Therefore, perhaps the ancestors of Thien Pham had to write the 3 words impossible. But he is different from the ancestors because he has developed techniques beyond human limitations. He can even perform the movements created by the ancestors to test them easily because it is not a perfected martial art. The most difficult thing is to use the create movements and then piece together the heavenly demon sword technique. It is currently very suitable for the sword's movement, feeling like the body is creating a series of techniques by itself. Theme Fam used Nano simulation to analyze the sword's movements. Above all, the main character wants to realize directly by breaking his own limits. Therefore, he continuously combines new sword techniques in as many ways as possible. 4 hours have passed since the experiments, and the court has acknowledged the failure. Thane Pham continuously displayed the heavenly demon sword technique tirelessly until all the internal energy in his body and the available sword techniques were exhausted. The technique of breaking limits did not harmonize with each other. They should have harmonized on some level, right? Thinking about it, he realized that he didn't need to use all the available sword techniques if they weren't effective. He just needed to eliminate them to set his own limits because freedom needs self-imposition, and harmony requires self-freedom. It comes from opening up rather than forcing oneself. At this moment, a surprising thing happened to him. Enlightenment came from a deep process of integration, so he achieved a state where he could completely control his internal energy. However, at a higher level, one becomes free through coercion by someone else, because controlling the energy of that person both internally and externally can be harmonized, which is miraculous and is also desired by martial artists. They call this state the supreme return to the residence of Lam Lo Tuba Kim Vodane. He had gone to see her, and she seemed angry. "What do you want from me?" "I'm here because there's something to discuss. I think we need to gather all the essentials and leave by early morning." "That's different from what you promised me. You agreed that I could study here to meet your conditions," said Huyen Van Tuyet, but he knew the situation nothing had changed, so there was else he could do. "You outsiders from Phi Kim Kok have known how many people like them. Suddenly, why are you doing this now? Those people are very dangerous. If you were kidnapped before completing the divine medical technique, our celestial plan would collapse. Didn't you promise to help maintain peace in the martial arts world after losing your precious possessions? Let us protect you from the villains," said Mai. After hearing some comforting words, the divine doctor couldn't express his emotions, so Ba Kien Wudang immediately understood the intention. "In that case, please prepare everything before dawn." The door to the medical room was closed after that statement. Cam Lo Tu looked helpless, and then Huyen Van Tuyet returned. His subordinates reported that they had discovered some strange movements around the forest, feeling that it was increasing day by day, so perhaps tomorrow morning we will go there. We will use them as bait, as planned, or what? They will become perfect prey. The divine doctor is ready. As soon as he leaves, she is still full of anger inside. It's true that it's a dilemma. Those who are not martial artists are different from those outside. Even if I refuse, they will try to manipulate the divine doctor. It really hurts to leave this place, which has been protected for generations. Looking through the medical books, she also checked. Indeed, the knowledge inside was very helpful for some emergencies, as Ba Kim Vodang had said, looking from the outside. The sound of arguing loudly. "My friend is in pain. I can't rely on Ba to heal her, can I?" Opening it up, the martial artist's disciples retained Cam Lo Tu. "You should go pack up. It's true that you're cold-hearted. You're going to abandon the patient while they're suffering." A voice suddenly rose. Finally, the medical room of the divine doctor was closed, and a cunning smile appeared where his master was. By now, his internal energy has become almost limitless, and the flow of energy from the Great Self was circulating faster. However, he still couldn't harmonize the techniques, but he could almost double or triple his strength compared to when he was at level C. That scene had increased a lot, so he fell into the abyss. Thane Pham had reached the realm of mystical vision. It seemed like he was very happy and forgot that there were still many people to protect. He had only postponed too much time to concentrate, so Van Q and his subordinates all thought he was dead, so he had to hurry. Just as he flew to the foot of the mountain, he felt discouraged. He didn't know how to climb this steep cliff, but looking at the sword stuck there, he came up with a good idea. "So I don't have to go around anymore." It turned out that he had calculated to step on the sword to climb slowly. However, the plan was not as good as the plan of heaven. After so many years, with the weight of an adult, the oxidation had become too much for him. Thane Pham fell freely and hastily drew his sword to regain safety. He thought he could use the key of the sovereign sword to create a place to step on easily, but the weather conditions below were so windy that even the great Protector Master couldn't do it all. So now, he had to follow the crude method from the heavenly demon sword that had appeared. Naman had to slowly climb up. Although it was slow, it was safe. At the Fikim Kok, the divine doctor had reported that the military equipment was ready, and now it was midnight, so Thien Pham's group was still sleeping, and no one noticed anything. Hien Van Tuyet asked for confirmation again and brought Kamlo to his task, calling his disciples in the faction to assist them. By the time they knew, we would have escaped. If the sealed space is broken by Tongok Thatch and the Consciousness Agency, those outside will quickly infiltrate. This is our perfect trap. Listen to my orders and immediately head to the study. However, he felt something strange. Other subordinates who were monitoring him on the roof had disappeared. The door slowly opened inward to see if there was any danger. Everyone acted like that, but the person on the ceiling finally realized something was wrong. But it seemed not as smooth as he thought. Immediately, the door was opened wide to get a clearer view inside. There were no monitors inside. All the people lying there were disciples of Wudang, in deep sleep from the drug I put in. It seemed ineffective. After a brief thought, he called a few others to come and check other rooms, but it wasn't much better. Everyone was subdued without leaving a trace. Upon closer inspection, they were actually dead, not unconscious. Furious, he rushed out, shouting loudly, "The medical god is gone. Quickly split up and search. I'll look for Wudang. You guys stay and search thoroughly." At this moment, he was at the entrance to the secret passage where the medical god's disciples of the previous generation were straining to open the Consciousness Agency, but no matter what they did, they couldn't. Hurriedly, without asking, he said loudly, 6 people in the study, including the medical god, have disappeared. They must have been searching inside the courtyard. Hearing this, Hien Van Tuyet angrily scolded. They'd broken the secret passage and flawed. Are you still talking? So it turns out he knew the plan and was here, delaying the opening because it took too long. Unable to manually activate the mechanism, Bakim demanded that the disciples step aside. The Consciousness Agency had been broken, forcing an escape. The sound of echoing, and someone quickly deduced that the group had used fire medicine. Don't worry, there are several Consciousnesses Agencies and Tangok Thatch outside. It will take them a long time. From outside, warnings of enemy infiltration had already been transmitted. Our perfect plan has been completely ruined. How could Cam Lotu dare to stab me at the back? At the same time, the subordinates of the protagonist had safely left. It must be that they had come to the courtyard. The minister praised Ho Fuquan and Ho Don Chu for their sudden intelligence, which enabled them to take the medical god away. But Bok Kai was the hardest working of all. He had to carry a heavier load than everyone else. It turned out that because he hadn't moved for a long time, Kan Lo Tu had to carry him to go. Yen Mukho reminded them that time was pressing. There was no time to dawdle. But as soon as she finished speaking, a large shield appeared in front of the leader, blocking them. The medical god explained, "We're all blocked here. You just need to push it out." Then Yen Mukho approached to do the job, and the internal energy in her hands appeared, breaking the huge rock in an instant. But as soon as she looked up, there was a sound from below, and a large number of black medical practitioners were waiting. The minister was worried because he had to deal with at least 2 lives quickly. "Let's rush ahead. Everyone stay close behind," he said. After that, the animation disappeared, and right below, a series of them were murdered mercilessly. Indeed, after taking up the position of deputy minister, Yin Mukho was stronger than before. Someone from a distance couldn't bear it and resorted to a cunning tactic. He was drawing out the evil spirit from his body to strike secretly. It was too itchy for her eyes, so she used her sword energy to strike him down. Fortunately for him, a fellow had rushed to his rescue. Yen, the old minister, frowned because almost 2 were counted, but before he could calculate, the internal energy flew in from somewhere, heading straight for her position. She sensed it in time and managed to deflect it not only once but several times because she anticipated it beforehand, so it wasn't difficult anymore. Then a series of masters appeared from somewhere, emerging from the bushes. The black medical practitioners laughed loudly. "Indeed, you are here just as I predicted. Places like this don't just have one entrance, right? That's the medical god, isn't it?" Unexpectedly, he's so fat, Van Q came forward, seeming to still resent him for the trap in the previous volumes. Jong-ho was warned the deputy minister about the very difficult opponent in front of him. The air around the person next to him was abnormal. At least he was a preliminary martial artist. The old man drew his sword and reminded his subordinates, "We'll deal with those two. The rest of you handle the others." Lai Trong-nat obeyed and spread out wider to encircle them. The strongest person raised his sword and aimed straight at Yen Mak-ho. Indeed, his intuition was excellent in choosing the strongest opponent to target. Just as he was about to strike, the deputy minister quickly turned back and reminded everyone to protect the medical god at all costs. So, 4 people had to take defensive positions to ensure Cam Lo-2's safety. Bak Kai was too exhausted, having played the roles of both a buffalo and a horse under her command. "I'll confront the old man, and you deal with the one without a mask," she ordered. The minister had divided the tasks with the deputy minister, but the other person had anticipated it and rushed forward to block their path. "Where do you think you're going?" "Both of you belong to me," said the wielder of the cut-down Ikim, closing in on Ven-Q, the woman of Thien Pham. Startled because she hadn't prepared the room for anything, she then realized something was flying towards her very quickly. Just in time, she drew her sword to block it, otherwise, she would have been killed. Lai Trong-nat sensed the hostile aura of the Gukim's attack, but didn't know where it was coming from. Additionally, countless swords from below the cliff shot straight at the wielder of the Nikim, overwhelming him because he couldn't detect his opponents. Meanwhile, the observers nearby had warned that there were inscriptions on the moving wall. Lai Trong-nat looked up and realized that the noise wasn't from a moving mountain. It was from the countless swords gradually emerging from the wall. This sight astonished the practitioners of the cut-down Ikium. Now, all the swords were aimed directly at the ongoing battle below. The innkeeper also stopped and turned back to observe, still not realizing who had caused this. Then, from below, a familiar figure flew up, stunning the subordinates of Thien Pham. The woman, Ven-Q, looked at him in disbelief, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe her eyes. It seemed like the returning lord was a divine being. Her gaze changed significantly, showing that something had changed since his fall. After hesitating several times, she still couldn't believe it and blinked repeatedly to see if the truth was that Thien Pham had returned. Finally, after a while, she cried out, "Oh, it's Thien Pham! He's alive!" Other subordinates also rejoiced because the divine swordsman was unharmed. The deputy minister realized that the Grand Master had reached the realm of mysteries overnight and had changed significantly. The Grand Master was truly the one chosen by the gods. The innkeeper was also astonished. Could that person be the one who fell from the cliff? Clearly, he had died in the explosion, but it seemed impossible to survive and return as a completely different person. It feels like he survived not by luck but by becoming someone entirely different from before. I had assumed the realm was just a superficial transformation, but now it's clear he has reached the realm of mysteries. So, there must be something mysterious beneath the cliff, obviously belonging to the medical god. If we keep hesitating like this, we'll be in danger. Looking back at his subordinates, he also laughed loudly. "You're still alive, eh? Congratulations on reaching the realm of mysteries. But don't boast too much. Come down here quickly for a fight. I know you can't control all those swords by yourself, you foolish, ignorant person." Standing before a high-level master of the realm of mysteries, he dared to play tricks. "Even with continuous use of kit techniques, I can only control 12 swords at a time. Do I look like someone playing tricks?" Thien Pham retorted from below. He was still as stubborn as ever. If not that, then what? Above, Nano had activated the remote control system with 128 swords, following the master's command. Immediately, they locked onto the positions and flew down at such a speed that they couldn't be detected, catching them off guard completely. The subordinates of the innkeeper were killed instantly, and several other swords flew quickly towards him, but he regained his composure and easily defended himself. Could this really be possible? What is its brain made of? At this moment, Lai Trong-nat continued to attack Ven-Q. He used his agile body to direct the sword straight towards the group protecting the medical god. As they were too distracted watching Thien Pham, she couldn't defend herself. The sharp tip of the sword was about to hit its target, but suddenly it stopped, as if someone was blocking it. Ven-Q's face turned pale and he hastily adopted a defensive stance, but it was too late. In the end, he closed his eyes and prepared to die right there, The protagonist rushed down at a dizzying speed, cutting through all the enemies to reach his woman, then also approached the second in command of the Luc Vomon extreme knife in an instant. A long cut pierced through his body, and a little more, and Van Q's life was no more. Blood began to spurt from his neck, indicating the end. This scene made the old man furious. He shouted, accusing the protagonist of being a despicable coward who specialized in attacking others by surprise while trampling on opponents. Nano continuously reported to the owner the energy consumption rate exceeds 75%, causing the remote control system to be enhanced. Indeed, the swords were affected, deviating from their flight paths. Countless black fiendish beings realized that Thien Pham could not control everything because it was too much for him. He was now slowly recovering, using basic martial arts to defeat them, causing some to panic. Seeing this opportunity, the old man attacked. In an instant, he rushed in, but Thien Pham, who was still inattentive, had already recovered his internal energy, so he stood up to shield Van Q and used his sword to intercept the old man's attack. It seemed like a disadvantage, but in fact, he was not weak at all. Two powerful energy streams clashed, creating a deafening explosion. Other subordinates could only watch in disbelief, unable to believe their master's strength. They thought she had exhausted her internal energy, but why was she still so powerful? The opponent's sword vibrated continuously, and he seemed lost in thought. Thien Pham, with his other hand, wielded his sword straight towards him. But how could he be easily caught? It turned out that this despicable guy was from the Cup Dao Luc Vomon. He knew his martial arts were not working well, so he had to retreat. He withdrew because he was discovered. He also shot out many sword energies to hinder the chase, making it easier for Thien Pham to maneuver. Then he ran straight towards his target, attempting to close in. Indeed, this movement made him surprise, reminiscent of the divine movement technique often used by devilish swordsmen when on the offensive. So it was him. He was the one from the Devil Sect who wore a mask. When he heard the story, he understood that they were talking about the Grand Dao Law Enforcement before. He also mentioned a duel with someone at Zhejiang, and that person used the martial arts of the pole knife, then with a sword. If this villain was from the Devil Sect, he had to be eliminated at all costs, if only for the sake of his sect. Recognizing his eternal opponent, the old man no longer faltered. He paused and rushed in to attack repeatedly with the divine sword technique. This was the technique that would make you suffer. This time, don't even think about escaping from me. But the surge of energy in Thien Pham's body, like a heavenly dragon, blocked everything in one blow. He was wide-eyed in surprise because no one in Trungguyen could do that. This made Thien Pham successful in closing in. He pushed the opponent's energy back with great force, causing the opponent to retreat more and more. The more he attacked, the faster and stronger he became, causing the sword in the opponent's hand to almost break, and he couldn't regain his composure. After the overwhelming technique, Thien Pham flew backwards, causing his opponent to stand still. But the blood in his body erupted. Oh, as he felt the pain, he groaned and asked, "Why do you know his sword technique?" Before I could say anything more, the body of the master of the six martial arts sect collapsed. Thien Pham used just enough force to ensure that the man didn't die, as he needed to preserve his life for further investigation into the mysterious martial arts sect. While examining the body, the deputy innkeeper hurriedly ran over and shouted loudly, begging for forgiveness for the mistake made during the work. The incident happened suddenly, and it wasn't anyone's fault. Duan, the deputy innkeeper of Camblo, also recognized the young man before him. He was the leader of the group they had just saved. Continuously lamenting, he also noticed Bok Kai and saw that his subordinates were about to become dried corpses. About to greet the medical god with a raised voice, a movement from a distance was detected. Urgent rustling sounds echoed, and it turned out that in this battle, there seemed to be a few disciples of the wandering martial arts sect secretly observing. Specifically, the elders of this sect, including Huyen Van Tuyen, were also worried. Even though they were from the 9 sects, they couldn't match Thien Pham. They had to return to Wudang and bring all their forces here. They might also need the support of the North Lake Alliance. The disciples behind were already out of breath. Even their exhaled breaths were visible. From behind, a surge of energy flew quickly to block the path. The swordsmen of Wudang hurriedly warned their disciples to be careful and bow down, but it was too late. A strike pierced straight through the chest, and the voice begged for mercy, looking at the sword pointed at the back. Recognizing what was inside the sheath, the elder realized the danger. Indeed, it was too urgent. They needed immediate help from allies. After contemplating, the elder began to search for the disciple's body, pulling out a stolen book from the medical god's study. With no other choice, they left the disciple's body in the wilderness and rushed off. The elder called for reinforcements, knowing they had to escape quickly. After that, Thien Pham, the one who controlled the swords earlier, because of this maneuver, his strength had quickly declined, so he ordered Yen Manhwa to come to the scene and assess the situation. After receiving the order, she quickly flew over and immediately saw the disciple's body lying in the vast wilderness. This sight made her truly realize how dangerous the enemy was. The sense of the sect leader had been enhanced and was truly terrifying. There were footprints of another person. Could it be the one they were thinking of? If it was, they would have pursued him immediately. If he managed to escape, everyone would be in danger upon returning to the sect. Yen Truom, elder without fear, continued tracking. In the battle, Thien Pham's subordinates had gathered the bodies of the White Kim members. Bak Kai reminded Ho Bom to erase all traces and leave nothing behind. Why were they just embroidering these bodies here? There were many corpses on the other side of the courtyard as well. Thien Pham's intention was to create fake evidence so that anyone who saw it would understand it was a battle of martial arts and the masked men. Since there were still a few items not brought along, the group returned to the medical god's residence. Upon arrival, they searched through everything, but there was nothing they wanted. Surely it was the book that the rogue swordsman had stolen, clearly stored in him. Now, where could it have gone? Outside, Thien Pham rushed in to ask for help, knowing that he was very busy, but he might be able to help. However, he was surprised when he opened the book. All were precious medicinal herbs. Although there were some, they weren't many. What was the little protagonist planning to do with that medicine? In the meantime, at the small hospital in the medical god's residence, Thien Pham's subordinates removed the mask of the innkeeper. Upon opening it, both of them were surprised. They conversed as if the elder was younger than expected. It turned out that the body of the man trembled, making everyone cautious. He was just moving, right? It would probably take a considerable amount of time for him to regain consciousness. Knowing this, Van Q asked the bone flower to stay behind and check, then report to the sect leader. The man was slowly regaining consciousness. He understood that his captors had deliberately spared his life, determined to extract information from him. Do you think I'll easily reveal everything? You're mistaken, he thought to himself. Struggling to break free, he realized that all his energy was gone, and he couldn't perceive any internal energy in his body. Then, he focused on the actions of his captor. What else was Thien Pham planning to do? Is this what you're suggesting to me? Among the sect leaders, there is one who considers himself very proficient in dark magic, so he joined the devil sect and became obsessed with superstition. Could it be that he's already dead, or what? Thinking about it, I understand. What will the final outcome be? He began to smile painfully and said, I was worried about your martial arts prowess, but it turns out you're just a fake as foolish as you can be, yet you call yourself a sect leader. Why do you think my sect wouldn't be wary of someone like you? Those words sounded too harsh, so Thien Pham shut his mouth and tightened it. You are the fool here, and you smirked cunningly, tearing open the medicine pouch onto yourself as if I couldn't foresee that. The vial in hand poured all the herbs straight into his mouth, his groans echoing throughout the room. After a while, unable to bear it any longer, you stopped. I told you it was futile, you stubborn fool. You know how to make medicine, but our tolerance is vast. But before I could finish my sentence, his eyes swirled and blurred, becoming difficult to see anything. You vile creature, what did you put in the medicine? Nano had analyzed the components of the herbs previously and concocted a drug to stimulate the central nervous system. Let me listen to your endurance. Your endurance is impressive. You began to feel the changes in your body and grew increasingly afraid. The thorns became larger, and you felt more and more exhausted yet still wanted to continue speaking. Applause rang out like a sign of your belief that I couldn't do this. Thien Pham repeated actions that surprised him, making him more confused the more he did, his clapping distracting his mind, and he eventually fell into an uncontrollable state. Every time I snap my fingers, you will answer one of my questions. The first thing the protagonist needed to ask was my identity. I am one of the 6 great sect masters of the ultimate saber sect, named Lai Bei. I want to take Mai away because she holds something by her title. Thien Pham revives her as a goddess. Then he extracted a lot of information from the sword sect master while he was mesmerized. The thing the divine healer was holding was an anatomical map that could create the ultimate body, meaning a body capable of fully receiving the ultimate saber divine power and the sword technique of the ultimate saber divine sect, which Thien Pham had been studying for months. This is a martial art that cannot be learned in the conventional way because the practitioner must cultivate their body through great methods to overcome the limits that humans can endure. Why do you need that anyway? How do you know that the divine healer is holding the anatomical map? It's because of the underground organization of the Martial Union. They are spies of the Celestial Alliance. They use the divine healer's techniques to nurture those martial artists who surpass human limits. That's why you targeted the divine healer. I've answered your questions. Now let's talk about the ultimate saber divine sect. At the same time, in a mysterious place, a black figure slowly entered a room full of various poisons and a box named Lai Bei, which emitted many unpleasant sounds. He began to open it to check if the poisons were still screaming continuously without stopping. I said you did get back what you said. Nonsense, what's that? He said before crushing the poison in his hand. I don't know who that is, but if you think you've extracted any information from him, you're wrong. He returned to Thien Pham, who continued to inquire about that mysterious sect. Why do you call that person the ultimate saber divine? Is it because Lai Bei's body has begun to undergo obvious changes? Your strategies have been exposed. You divide them into 6 sections, just like their namesake, but no matter how much you ask, this person won't reveal anything. Then Thien Pham realized the signs of poisoning in him. I told you, you won't get anything from me. Right now, at the moment of revealing information that cannot be disclosed, the poison planted by Kohathai in my head will send a signal to avoid losing valuable information. So the protagonist requested Nano to scan the subject's brain by taking an MRI. The result confirmed that there were matching poisons planted in the brain, which were continuously swelling. This also resembles the act of implanting poisons into the heart of Daeho Lai Bok, who still frowned. In the end, you won't know anything from me. Without further delay, he continued the electric shock to preserve his life. The body is now as dry as a dog due to the electric shock, so the poison in the subject's brain temporarily stopped moving. The protagonist asked the system to remove it and keep the brain from being damaged on the outside, but the divine healer was still wandering around. What are you looking for everywhere? You still haven't found it, huh? There's nothing in the Medicine Avenue. Did you find any special books made of special paper lying outside? But neither Bai Qi nor Hobam found anything special. It seems that it is very important to her, so she became very depressed. Outside the gate, another person also entered immediately. Everyone inside recognized the power and paid no attention to the divine healer's story anymore. Everyone turned back to see what that action was about. It seems we have a guest. Divine healer, stay silent. When he was about to exert himself to reveal his identity, he realized it was his man. So it turns out that Elder Yan has returned after investigating the disciples of Vodang. Upon closer observation, it seems she's trailing something quite eerie. This person must be the formidable Vodang Bakim, right? Why would she do such a thing? It's unbelievable because this person is too formidable, having defeated someone from the 9 sects. Looking at the mangled body, Kamlo too feels a chill, imagining the possibility of all limbs being severed. These people are indeed merciless, certainly not from the righteous sects. Elder Yang congratulated Yan Elder for her efforts when suddenly there was a loud bang from the direction where the protagonist was investigating the master swordsman of the extreme saber, from the Vomon sect. Everyone the seriousness of this incident and rushed to see if it poses any threat to the safety of the sect leader. Meanwhile, the protagonist was preparing to pull out the parasitic worm from Nano's body, which he had controlled within the user's energy range and remotely accessed one of his eyes, as if it were about to explode. With his divine power, he pulled it out and hurled it upward to avoid any unwanted injuries. In reality, the eye contains the parasite, preparing to fulfill its mission. A loud explosion caught everyone's attention. He could easily override his own prohibition order. So, who is this person? Nano had minimized most of the brain damage, but this person wouldn't hold out for long. In this urgency, Tian Pham was very hurried. "I'll do it quickly because it will hurt a lot," he said. Lai Bok, still not understanding anything, was suddenly pushed aside by someone outside. People opened the door to check on the sect leader's condition. The deputy minister was wide-eyed with astonishment. His sect leader was still diligently researching. As usual, the master of extreme saber, Vo Man, asserted some words. Finally, he lost his life in front of everyone. As his subordinates inquired, he also spoke up, saying that he had found their base. Before anyone could understand, he reiterated the base of Vo Man, which was Mount Hoang Sun in Hangzhou province. The research continued. This time, the disciples of Vo Dang, the medical sage, also lent a hand in drawing blood to keep him alive. But even if she interfered, he would only live for at least half an hour. Seeing Tian Pham arrive, Cam Lo Tu also mentioned the limited time the master swordsman will survive. "It's okay, as long as we extract their information, we'll be fine," Tian Pham reassured. This medical sage's actions were indeed puzzling. She hurriedly knelt down and loudly uttered 2 words, "Gracious assistance." She had an urgent matter to ask for assistance. If Tian was planning to use that medicine with Huyen Dao Truong, she wanted to inquire about it. She had received a request from an organization named the Ta Thing Club and had studied a great method that could push the human body to its limits. They claimed they would nurture strong martial artists to create a just world. However, a year ago, her only granddaughter was abducted by the Union of Destruction section to serve them. They promised to return her if she won, but with her current strength, she couldn't. As time passed, she felt strange that the Tong Thien Club was strong enough to potentially become part of the 9 great sects. Even the fact of whether her granddaughter was alive or dead couldn't be determined. As she spoke, she pointed directly at Vodang Bukim. "Surely you know something. If you can help, regardless of your faction being good or evil, I'm willing to do anything within my power." Nan Chen remains calm, ready to think. If she owed him a favor, there would be no need for persuasion. It was too good to be true. Finally, he agreed to let the medical sage ask her first question. Before that, to ensure the medicine's efficacy, they had to break his pill furnace. So they waited a bit, observing the protagonist's actions. Cam Lo Tu reminded himself to be cautious, fearing he might stab him in the back after a few basic movements to control his mind. Still, it was the shaking of hands that would make the subject confess. "Do you really don't know where my granddaughter is?" "Cam Mai Duong is at Long Ho Camp, one of the 18 waterways camps," the medical sage said angrily. "I've asked you dozens of times, and every time, you said to be searching. Yet you already knew."